7 minutes past 8. Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, we'll get back to our focus on fighting corruption. Mr. George A.K., a legal practitioner, joins us this morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you so much.
Well, about fighting corruption, Mr. Yibo said, look, he doesn't believe it can be fought. It can be managed. That's what they think. You think that that's the way it should be?
Well, I appear to agree with him to the extent that corruption is in every country. And what most administrations try to do is to minimize corruption. But what we are doing today as fight against corruption, or what is popularly called anti-corruption crusade, to my mind, is ad hoc.
Why do you think so?
Sensational and diversionary.
Why?
I do agree that corruption is like cancer to any administration. It will affect health, care system, education, just every facet of life and every facet of governance. And it needs to be expunged. It cannot be totally eradicated, just like, we have all agreed. And that is the reason while you are fighting corruption, you do other things. Corruption cannot be a major focus of a government. What we see now is that it is almost like the central thing that we are doing. And it is so centralized that there is no other thing we talk about in Nigeria today other than corruption. Indeed, outside, it has gotten to a level where when our leaders go abroad, the first two sentences they will make out of their speech is that they are fighting corruption. There was giving an impression that Nigeria is a country that is soaked in corruption. It may well be true, but you see, like I said the last time, our president is not given to telling lies. He probably will not lie to the international community that there is no corruption in this country. But he can also conceal the truth. As a matter of fact, it is part of his oath of office that he cannot say everything he sees in office. The reason is this: here we are asking for foreign direct investment on one hand, but the first sentence on the first paragraph we will make in a speech is how corrupt Nigerians are. Nigerian businessmen are, Nigerian bankers, just like the last one when they said 55 Nigerians had stolen about some trillions or thereabouts, which the Secretary of State to the United States, Kerry, now amplified that all the money that was voted for the Boko Haram insurgents fight had ended up in the pockets of Nigerian army generals, which does not tell well of a country like this.
But there's also been...
The point I'm making is that, yes, it is good to fight corruption. Corruption is like weed to a farmer. You must remove it for you to have a bountiful harvest. In other words, that is what will enable us to tackle our health challenges, electricity problem, employment, and all of that. But these things, if a farmer fights weed, so much so that there is no more weed in his farm, and he didn't plant any crops, obviously it doesn't make sense.
Well, if you say that was, it appeared as though it was the overarching factor at the initial stage, would you say it's also the same thing lately? Because we do know there's been a lot of focus on what needs to be done about the economy.
Well, you may need to tell me about that, because I do know that the economy is in bad shape.
I'm talking about from the perspective of reportage and the press.
Oh yeah, sure. I read, and I do know that the economy is in bad shape. If there are things that are being done to make sure that the economy is beaten into line, as it were, we are yet to see the result. We are yet to see the focus. Because as far as I'm concerned, I've never seen the economic team of this administration. If you have seen, let me know. I don't know who is piloting the economy of this country. I also do not know the blueprint, economic blueprint of this country. I also do not know who is the special advisor on economy in this administration. And all we keep hearing about is fight against corruption. I said it is good to fight against corruption. But you see, part of why I refer to it as ad hoc initially is that, you see, corruption has three platforms. One is the causality factor. But we are at the enforcement end of it, where we grab people, take them to court, probably expect that they'll be imprisoned. You know, quite a number of people are now saying that due process should be kept in abeyance. You know, in other words, once you catch the man, don't suspend the constitution for a while, or this due process thing. Throw him into jail as a deterrent. And I'm saying no. There is a sociological angle to corruption. There's an accounting angle to it before you now get to the legal and enforcement area. The sociological angle is the value orientation. I noticed that your last guest made allusions to, you know, value orientation. Why do you think a typical American finds it difficult to lie, even though they hardly go to church like we do here? But before, if you are looking for a pencil in a classroom in America, before in less than 2 seconds, the person who took it has owned up, and that is part of why they do not even adopt a lot of torture in their investigation system. You see a very hardened criminal. By the time you talk to him, you know, for the next 6 minutes, he said, I did it. He agrees that he did it. But here you have to hang somebody, you know, and flog him and do quite a number of things before he now agrees. In other words, what the point I'm making is that it's a value that he's told not to lie. But
before we go back to value orientation, or before we continue on value orientation, I still don't understand what you mean by ad hoc. We have to come back again to the fight. You think that this is not
before I lose my thought train on that, let me just quickly explain what I mean by being ad hoc. Ad hoc in the sense that, you see, a fight against corruption that is anchored on one man's morality, integrity, cannot last too long. It will be like all those Kai and Y brigade kind of things that we saw at that point in time, when every Nigerian had to queue because of a fear of one particular person. The moment the person is gone, you now find out that the queue just disappears. In other words, what we are saying is institutionalized. That is why I've started talking about the value orientation. In other words, here is a situation where the educational system, the curriculum, and all of that, indeed, there's something I call undergrowth model. When a woman palms the hair and probably loses the natural hair, if she wants the natural hair, she needs to cut out the palm side, the palm area of the hair before the undergrowth comes. The undergrowth now is with our children, not with the youths. Because you see, the youths are already immersed in the corruption that we are talking about.
So we just skip one generation going down again?
Yeah, sure, going to the kids, as a matter of fact, the babies, as it were. Because you see, you can only begin to get the results in the next 40 years. And 40 years in the life of a nation is like 2 weeks. So it is not a thing that it can be achieved within Buhari's time, in 4 years, 8 years. It's not a tenured thing. It's a thing that has to be institutionalized. And the point I'm making here is that the undergrowth theory is such that it should focus on the babies. The youths, if you read, there was some news report at the close of last year about student union government budget that had some disagreement in University of Ife. And so OAU, that as they call them now. The student union president had budgeted some 400,000 as security vote for himself, 200 for telephone calls, I think some 200 or something, 200,000 for incidentals, or what they call incidentals. As innocuous as that piece of news was, what did it teach me? A student union president asking for security vote. This is a case of a baby cow watching the mother cow eat. What does the student union president require a security vote for? So these are the people who are the poster boys who are trying to come into politics and all of that, and they are already tainted with our own behavior.
So are you suggesting
so it has to be below?
If that could explain, I beg your pardon, does that explain why you say leave the youths, they are meshed?
Oh, sure. Because they are part of us. As a matter of fact, they are already tainted. Yeah, but you begin to work on the people who are just being born now, anticipating that in the next 40, 50 years, a typical Nigerian will not respect anybody who got his wealth through corruption.
Who are the people who are going to work on them? The tainted people?
No. It's a matter of orientation. That is why I keep saying, in short, it was Sly that made that point sometime last year. Where is the National Orientation Agency? The educational system. I'm told that they don't teach them anything civic education now. They don't teach them history and all of that. Those are things that any given country uses to
I'm trying to
train their
understand.
people.
What I'm trying to understand this a little more, because I mean, are you suggesting then that we shouldn't focus on investigating those who are alleged to have mismanaged their funds when you can take them to the court and then the money is recovered?
No, I agree with that. But I'm telling you that it is ad hoc. That's why I said it is at the level of enforcement. You just grab them. This person stole, and you know that the way we now evaluate corruption is how many people have been convicted, how many convictions we have secured. You are punishing those who you caught.
But we understand.
We're talking about a situation where they don't even need to get into the corruption.
But we understand that they are willingly even refunding these monies. That's on the one hand, while
Chamberlain,
the courts
they're
also going to have their days in court.
I also know so. But what we are saying is, what we are doing is for now, ad hoc, ephemeral. It is for now. As Buhari is sitting down there, we are talking about a day where there is no Buhari. Where there is no Buhari. And like I told you,
we haven't gotten to that day.
No.
So
we need to project. So and I'm telling you now that there could be a situation. I mean, in this situation where it is the only person we see symbolizing fight against corruption is Buhari. There is no other person in the horizon. If you know any other person, the rest are people who are just turning out figures. This much money has been stolen. Is that the figures are coming from Bini, or they are coming from?
They're part of the government. They are driving the agenda, the focus of government.
Good. That's what we call sensationalism.
How?
In other words, what we are now saying is that this number of sum of money has been stolen by this number of people. Then we go grab them, probably charge them to court and want to put them into prison. But let me just tell you these three platforms before we arrive here. When we finish talking about this undergrowth model that I talked about, then we talk about the accounting system. Accounting system where doesn't it worry you that an accounting system is in place where one man sits in one office and steals about 29 billion pension funds, and it is happening in quite a number of places. Anywhere, any accounting system that allows a man steal that much, there must be a question mark on it. Another is, look at the budget we were talking about, littered with all manner, and profligacy shares a common boundary with corruption. A situation where you have to lay some wire or cable or whatever from a driver's spot, from one driver's whatever to the guest house.
But many will say that's why they say it is not just about the man, the President Buhari, that now a lot of people can look into the budget and ask questions the same way that they also hope to look into several public officials and public offices and ask questions as well. So it's beginning to also go beyond just this government.
Let me not tell you